This interview is with the two physicists who wrote this paper, which really was supposed to be about string theory, but it seems to have garnered more attention for the serendipitous derivation of a new formula for pi. For more details on the math, see our main video, which will be linked in the video description. Dealing with the pi thing first, which obviously has received some publicity. I've seen it in newspapers, and obviously people have taken an interest in it, including myself. Can you tell me how you feel about that? What's been your reaction to this? Because I imagine your work doesn't often get this level of broad interest. How have you felt about that?
The feeling has been a little mixed because I think deriving this formula was exciting for us, and but then some of the reporting was, I think, over the top, and it was beyond our control because that is not what we said. The media interpreted it in some other way. And our motivation, of course, was not to find a formula for pi. We were looking at a classical function, which is less well known, which was invented by the Swiss mathematical genius Leonhard Euler in the 18th century, and he's an inspiration to many people. So we wanted to actually have a different physics interpretation of that particular object. And pi was just a byproduct. It wasn't our main focus. I think the fact that pi received so much attention was because of the fact that pi is one of the first interesting numbers that we learn as children. So we first are taught that pi is approximated to 22 by 7, and then we realize as we grow up that it does not really truncate. It's a transcendental number. It continues, and so on and so forth. And so I think that is the reason why I think it got the attention of so many people. So initially we were excited that, okay, finally, the kind of esoteric things that we do is sort of being communicated to the general public. But to be honest, there was a little, some kind of disappointment as well, because the kind of misreporting that was made in some of the media, as well as the kind of videos that were made on YouTube by some people who did not actually get what we were trying to do correctly. So that actually was not something that we enjoyed. On the other hand, the flip side is that the fact that these kind of very formal areas of theoretical physics can have something new to say about classical functions. That, of course, is always very very heartening to know. So in that sense, we are happy that it got to the attention of certain mathematicians, and in fact, there is a mathematician who has found an alternative proof of our formula, which can be found on Math Overflow. So unfortunately, none of us have the requisite credits to say anything on Math Overflow because we are not mathematicians. But it is fun to see the discussions on Math Overflow, and when the discussion is at a respectful level, of course, we like it. On the other hand, there are also things that are sort of thrown out there without backing them up with any sort of evidence. So those kind of things disappoint us, because as scientists, we expect our colleagues to be honest with us as well.
Yeah, I agree with Aninda, what he told, and the feeling has been the same, kind of mixed feeling. And some things were misreported, but again, the formula is very new, and some appreciations from some people. So it is a kind of mixed feeling.
When you say misreported, how do you mean? Like, how would you describe the people who've reported it badly? How would you say they've reported it? How has it been misreported?
Maybe misreported is too strong a word. So I would say that because the reports try to oversimplify some of the things. So, for example, nowhere did we make the claim that we are going to revolutionize the field of mathematics. And so some of the reports said that the formula is going to revolutionize mathematics. I mean, we never made any such claims. And so if somebody else makes those kind of claims on our behalf, we look like idiots in front of our colleagues. So in that sense, that's what I meant by misreporting. I think maybe misreporting is not the right word. I mean, oversimplifying and then trying to sort of make the audience interested in that. I think some of them went a bit too far.
How does one remedy that? Is there a way for you to remedy that, or is it just something you have to tolerate for a few months and then just move on?
Yeah, one way is that there have been some nice videos. There is one video that is on YouTube by Presh Talwarkar. I don't know whether you saw that one or not. His thing is called "Mind Your Decisions," if I'm not mistaken. That's a very objective representation of what we did. Of course, he doesn't cover any of the physics, the motivation that we had, and why we were looking for a formula of this kind. So that bit was missed, but that one was good. So I think there was some correct representations of whatever we did, and there were some wrong representations. So it's a mixed bag, so we have to live with it. I don't think all that we can do is hopefully the one that you are making might actually help in remedy some of the situation, or I don't know. On the other hand, I am actually writing an article meant for not for the general public, but sort of broadly for the scientific community for the International Center for Theoretical Sciences, which is based in Bangalore. So, which will come out in the newsletter, which explains more clearly what our motivation was. So, hopefully, these kind of things might help in.
When you were doing this work and this pleasant realization about a new way of representing pi appeared, were you excited? Did you think, "Oh, this is
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we was very much excited because because of the physics implications as well. So when we found that this is actually sort of extrapolating to the Madhava series in one limit, and then it actually gives you a faster representation. So you can think of it as a family of formulas, and Madhava belongs to that family. So in this family of formula, you find the oldest ever series representation that is recorded. So it does make you feel humbled because, it fell out of the blue. It is not something that we were searching for. So when this realization dawned on us that we actually found the Madhava-Leibniz series as a sort of in some limit of our formulas, at least my reaction was, first of all, sometimes you feel that some things are there which are sort of, there is some invisible hand there which is trying to show you the right direction. So that kind of feeling is there.
Indeed. What about you, Arnab? I mean, obviously, I imagine Aninda has a few more runs on the board for discoveries and papers. You're a bit newer to the game. This must have been very exciting for you.
Yeah, it has been really exciting to see such a series emerges out from what we have been doing, and especially for me as a beginner in this field. So I did not have prior experience in this kind of work. So I was overjoyed.
Did you have any feeling that because of pi being in there as a little side thing, this might create more interest and shine more light on the paper you'd written, or were you surprised?
Yeah, first of all, I was surprised about the interest among other people that I did not anticipate that much. But of course, pi is something everyone can relate to. So yeah, people will take more interest in that work.
So when we wrote our paper and we found these formulas, so one of the first things that I did was to contact a mathematician colleague of mine in IISc by the name of Apurva Khare, who I knew from before because I had talked to him about various things, and he said that he'd never seen these formulas before. He asked me a bunch of questions that, can lambda be complex? So in fact, the formulas that we found works also for complex lambda. So if it has an imaginary part, and that's remarkable. And then so he said, no, he's never encountered this. So he wanted to send it to some of his friends. And later on, he told me that one of his friends actually included Terence Tao. So he also said that he had never seen this formula. But, mathematicians are very cautious because pi is something that has been around for such a long time. Maybe somebody had written an esoteric paper somewhere, and then it could be hiding somewhere there. So it's not completely obvious how long it takes for something to be called a completely new formula. Now, but then when the paper got published, we sent it to our divisional chairman and director, both of whom are mathematicians. And both of them had good things to say, especially our divisional chairman. And he said that we should actually make a press release focusing on pi. So that's how this story centered around pi originated. I mean, that I don't think it would have actually occurred to either of us to actually try to sell to the layperson that, look, we have found a new formula for pi.
So you talked about a small amount of disappointment with some of the exaggeration of the discovery. But when you add it all together, do you see it as a positive because it has also shone more light on the
Yes.
physics?
Overall, I think it's positive in the following sense. So, when we released the paper on the archive, before it was accepted by the physical review letters, I had actually tried to reach out to sort of international mathematicians by making a post on Math Stack Exchange. And my post had zero views, zero interest. I mean, no responses, no replies or anything like that. So there were some views, I think 40 odd views or something like that. And then, but after it became after it became viral, then I think mathematicians tried to step in and then try to actually honestly investigate two things. First of all, whether this new formula gives you a really fast converging representation for pi, which we never claimed, first of all. It was fast compared to the Madhava series. That was very clearly written in our paper. The fact that the Borwein brothers or Chudnovsky algorithms give you faster representations is easy to find out. We are not idiots that we are not going to go to Wikipedia and find out that there are these representations. So that is one thing. And so some mathematicians actually studied the rate of convergence, I think much better than we had formally studied. But what happened very nicely is that there was this Swedish mathematician by the name of Hjalmar Rosengren, who found an alternative proof of our formula. So using some mathematical techniques. So that actually was very pleasing to us. So I think that was a positive, a big positive, because there was an alternative proof which formalized our formulas.
We talk about Madhava,
Yes.
Ramanujan, both Indian men. There seems to be a history and a heritage of Indian scientists and mathematicians in this area. Does that make this more special for you? Does that give you any extra sense of pride as you're both Indian men as well?
I suppose you could put it that way, but I've never. I think of myself as a global scientist rather than just being. I mean, when later on, maybe historically, some formula is used somewhere, we rarely remember that, oh, this was Euler and Euler was a Swiss mathematician. So we never actually correlate Euler's nationality there. So I think it's the formula that lives. That's a key thing rather than. But of course, it gives us some extra pride that the first ever series recorded in the history can be traced back to Madhava, who lived in the 15th century. And so indeed, there is a reason to feel kinship, a bit more kinship than probably what we would have otherwise felt. But other than that, I admire lots of scientists, irrespective of their religion. So if there is something really nice, I don't look at their nationalities to be honest.
Yeah, no, I am aware of the history of pi, but not specially that it originated in India or somewhere else, because science comes first, as Aninda said. Nationality is not that big deal in this case. And definitely, we were proud that it could connect to something which people had investigated earlier.
What about the number pi for you, Arnab? Is that or you can probably remember when you were a young boy and a mathematician. I don't know if Aninda can. Do you remember being the romance of pi as a youngster? And now that you've contributed in some small way to the story of pi, that must be a great feeling.
Definitely, because pi is something that we learn from school, and pi is the first irrational number, so to say, we encounter in our school life. It gives the ratio of circumference to the radius in that way. So definitely pi is something in that way very special. And to see pi emerging out from something what we have been doing is definitely something very special.
Let's quickly come on to what you've been doing then, the physics. Obviously, your paper was accepted by Physical Review Letters, which in itself is prestigious. Can you tell me something of how important you think the physics is to building our knowledge of string theory?
Yeah. So there was a puzzle so far as string theory is concerned, in the sense that the first ever string amplitude or string scattering amplitude that was used was this Euler beta function. It is in string theory, it is called the Veneziano amplitude after Gabriel Veneziano, and it has some very interesting features. So first of all, it has got an infinite number of higher spin massive particles hiding there somewhere. And it has some very interesting high energy behavior. So that is the reason why people were looking for such an amplitude back in the late 1960s to try to explain hadron physics, hadron scattering physics. But in simple terms, the problem is that to capture these kind of stringy features, it would appear, and many people were of that opinion, that you really require to keep an infinite tower. So you really require to have knowledge of this infinite tower of higher spin massive particles. But this contradicts the way that we do physics. So for example, when we try to understand how scattering happens, we use Feynman diagrams. And when we actually use Feynman diagrams to explain what is going on at, say, 100 GeV, we don't really care about what is happening at a trillion electron volts. We don't put in that kind of physics there. I mean, usually we never do that. So the question that we were trying to address is that can these kind of string quantities, can they be written in the language of Feynman diagrams? So that is how the program actually originated. And one of the features that are there in all our formulas is that there is this extra parameter. So in the pi formula, if you look at the formula carefully, on the left hand side we have pi, on the right hand side there is some mysterious lambda that is sitting there, and then it is supposed to be pi for any lambda. And that lambda actually has a physical interpretation. It simply captures the fact that secretly there are in fact an infinite number of higher spin massive particles, similar to the fact that there are an infinite number of terms in the series for pi. Although we are not going to ever sum up those infinite number of terms, rather we are going to say that how many terms do we really require in this series to, say, accurately match pi or capture pi to 10 decimal places, 20 decimal places, maybe a million decimal places. So that's where the series formula comes in handy. Exactly the same question you can ask in physics, that how many higher spin massive particles do we need to put in to actually capture certain features of the string physics. So that is the thing that we are trying to capture. And because of the fact that there are secretly infinite number of terms or an infinite number of massive modes, and we are throwing away these massive modes, there has to be an imprint of what we did when we throw away these massive modes. And this extra parameter that enters our formula is an imprint of the fact that we have thrown away these massive modes.
I've made a number of videos about string theory, and I always find it to be a rather polarizing topic. Some people love it, and they can't get enough of it. They're really passionate for it. A lot of other people, to put it delicately, think maybe you're going down a blind alley and string theory isn't what's going on. What do you say to that?
I think both, there are merits to what both communities are saying. So let me address what the second community is saying. So it is something that string theorists cannot deny, although we are actually trained, at least I was formally trained as a string theorist. My advisor was one of the inventors of string theory in Cambridge. So by ancestry or by pedigree, I am formally a string theorist. The thing is that we have not made a sharp experimental prediction as yet. That is, I think, nobody can deny that fact. Okay, but there are certain aspects of string theory which obviously enable us to question that can we modify certain of these aspects to sort of maybe try to connect up with experiments. Okay, and this is where I think some of the way that we are asking these questions in trying to find this formula is has this broad motivation. So for example, we wanted to find a representation where we could actually throw away these infinite tower and still capture essential physics. Also something that nobody can deny, that there are certain aspects which are not just pleasing philosophically, so far as what string theory has to say. For example, the fact that there is this holographic understanding of quantum gravity, the ADS-CFT correspondence, or what goes by the name of the gauge gravity duality. So these kind of things, these kind of lessons, I think sharp calculations where you can actually try out things on both sides, one cannot deny that those also exist. So I think it is a logical possibility that certain aspects need to be modified, and one can actually use the techniques of quantum field theory and string theory together to try and make better contact with experiments. So that is definitely a logical possibility. So at least our program is designed in that way. So the reason why we wrote that paper was to investigate such a possibility. In fact, we are actively researching on in this direction right now as we speak. I had a meeting with Arnab and one of my graduate students in the morning, trying to look at these kind of things. And so I think one has to take, and that's how science works as well, one has to listen to criticisms from both sides. You cannot be an extremist, you have to be a moderate, and you have to listen to both sides as well as possible.
You're obviously a bit more experienced. You've been around the block and you had ups and downs. How do you feel about this little roller coaster that you've taken Arnab on? Because I'm sure when the two of you did this paper together, you didn't think this younger scientist was going to receive all this attention. Have you apologized to him?
Yes, exactly. That is the right word. So I remember that after, once the newspaper articles came out, we shared it with our family members and they were very happy. And so that was okay. And then we suddenly saw lots of videos and lots of other articles. And then I was traveling. I was at a conference. So I Skyped with Arnab and told him that, I'm very sorry, but you've become too famous now to get a job anymore. So...
Arnab, can you tell me how you felt about it? Are you seeing it as a net positive for you that all this has happened?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a very mixed feeling, I would say. Some positive impact. Well, okay, my friends, my family, they wished me, congratulated me. And apart from that, well, yeah, I mean, it has been a bit overwhelming.
Has it given you more motivation? Has it put a fire in you to think, I want to write more papers that get this level of attention?
Honestly, this attention is not what I crave for. It's the joy of working things and learning new things that keeps me more motivated. So yeah, I not look for attention as such, but definitely I enjoy what I do.
The joy of finding things out, I think, is the primary motivation for all of us. So we want to leave behind something that other people use after we are dead and gone. So of course, as researchers, as scientists, I mean, that is one thing that we can try to do or aspire to do, to gain some kind of immortality for a few more years. If there is attention and if that actually motivates a youngster to do the similar things, to ask these fundamental questions, that's great. I think that's a positive. But we don't, we can't design problems to say that, okay, this is going, if you work on this problem, this is going to feature in the newspaper. I mean, that is not, it's not possible.
I know neither of you sought out this publicity, but as someone who is very caught up by the romance of pi, can I congratulate you and thank you for contributing some new piece of knowledge to this magical number,
yes,
even if it wasn't what you were seeking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Check out links on screen and in the video description for our math video about this pi discovery, and also a video that goes into a bit more detail about the physics.
I have to tell you one thing. So I have looked at, before even when you contacted me, I looked at some of your videos and they were really good. And yesterday, one of my students, I told him that, this YouTube channel called Numberphile. I said, yes, I watch it regularly. And I said, they are going to interview us. I said, oh, that's such a huge honor.
I promise you the honor's all mine. But I do know there are lots of young, enthusiastic mathematicians in India, and lots of them do watch Numberphile. I hear from them regularly.